just pin myself. There we go. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our regular Sunday service. First of all, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. Thank you for joining us. I know on a normal Sunday, Mother's Day, you might be sleeping in and getting breakfast in bed or whatnot, but with the COVID, you might not be able to spend the time with your children. But nonetheless, thank you for joining us on this Sunday morning. Last week, I made a mistake. I actually said, I believe that this week I was supposed to be joining service for the it's called the Coast District in Northern California. There's several temples that join together for their Gotayan service or Shinan Shorni's birthday. But I had the dates mixed up. It's actually next weekend. So next weekend, I'll be sending out an invitation to join their service instead of our service here. So I apologize for any mix-up that may have caused. I'd like to begin this morning's service with a moment of silent meditation, followed by the recitation of the name of the Buddha or the Onembutsu. No more knobs, no more knobs, no more knobs, no more knobs, no more knobs. Okay, now we'll start off with the reading, and we'll be reading the Shim Buddhist Pledge, which I did send out, but it's also on your screen there. The Shim Buddhist Pledge. I take refuge in the vow of the Buddha. Uttering the sacred name, I will live my life with strength and serenity. I receive the light of the Buddha. I will put effort into my work with self-reflection and gratitude. I follow the teaching of the Dharma. Discerning the right path, I will spread the true Dharma. I rejoice in the compassion of the Buddha. I will respect and help others and do my best for the welfare of all mankind. Namo Amida. Now, since May is the month in which we celebrate the birth of Shinan Shonin, this week, and actually next week it's not, but the weekend after, we'll be chanting the Shoshinge, which is Shinan Shonin's, the song that he wrote on the Nembutsu, Hymn of True and Trusting in the Nembutsu. But today I'd like to ask you to join me in chanting it in English. And as per other chants in English, it's one syllable per beat. And except on the fourth line here, it goes down. You can follow along, and as we chant, you'll get it. And then halfway through, it actually changes a little bit. Some of us have been chanting it regularly every Friday morning, and some of you have chanted this before, so hopefully you'll be able to follow along. But just follow along to the best of your ability. Naman nobs, naman nobs, naman nobs, naman nobs, naman nobs. to the light that surpasses all thought. Bodhisattva Dharmakara in his seeking stage, Satlokeshvara Raja at his Buddha seat. He learned the causes and conditions of each Buddha land, studied the inhabitants and all their qualities. On this foundation he brought forth supreme aspiration, awakening the great vow, all embracing, vast and rare. Through ages of reflection, determining his vow, he reaffirmed his calling name would be heard everywhere. Thus he radiates his light, immeasurable and boundless, unhindered beyond compare, a dazzling, glorious blaze. Light that purifies the mind, light of joy and wisdom, light unceasing beyond thought, far beyond description, brighter than the sun and moon, illuminating countless worlds, every being, everyone receives this radiant light. The calling name of the primal vow properly directs us. The vow of sincere and trusting mind becomes for us the cause. Equal awakening is attained, confirming great nirvana. Because of the vow's fulfillment, nirvana is surely attained. The reason that Tathagata came forth into our world was to teach Amida's primal vow, boundless as the ocean. Now beings also boundless in this evil, impure age should respond in trust and take to heart Tathagata's true words. If for the briefest moment the mind of joy awakes, we realize nirvana, though our minds remain defiled. Worldly wise Dharma haters all will turn and enter, as rivers pour into the sea, becoming of one taste. The all-embracing mind light always shines on and protects us. The darkness of our ignorance already has dispersed. yet craving anger, greed, and hatred like dark clouds and mist always cover up the sky of true insight and faith. As clouds and mist obscure the sun, covering its light, yet beneath them pure light radiates, no darkness can be found. Receiving faith with reverence, discernment, and great joy, without delay we leap across beyond the evil realms. When ordinary beings, whether full of good or evil, hear and trust Tathagata's all-embracing vow, Shakyamuni calls them all superior, clear-sighted. Such people are correctly named white lotus flowers. Amida Buddha's primal vow established Nembutsu. Yet we who cling to evil views with arrogance and pride can never easily receive the truth with joyful faith. There is nothing that could be more difficult than this. The masters of the teachings from India in the West, and all the noble monks who lived in China and Japan, explain to us the great sage came with a true intention to clarify the primal vow accords with everyone. Shakyamuni Buddha dwelling on Mount Lanka, to the multitudes foretold one day in India's south, Mahasattva Nagarjuna will appear in this world and destroy dualistic views of being and non-being, transmitting Mahayana, the Dharma unsurpassed. He will realize a stage of joy, be born in the land of peace, and teach that arduous practice is like struggling down an endless road, while joyful trust in the easy way is a peaceful voyage at sea. With mindful recollection of Amida's primal vow, without design instantly we reach the certain stage, and with the soul eternal praising of Tathagata's name, let us repay the kindness of the great compassionate vow. Bodhisattva Vasubandhu in his discourse stated that he had surrendered to unhindered light, relying on the larger sutra. He revealed true virtue, made known that with a great vow we leap over birth and death. through the power of the primal vow, transferring us its virtue, he revealed the single mind, delivering all beings, entering the all-pervading precious sea of merit. We surely will be numbered with a great assembly. Allowed to reach the lotus world, we realize true suchness. True Dharma nature is attained clearly without doubt. We play in the forest of passions, yet manifest wonderful powers. We enter birth and death's garden, transformed to benefit all. The king of Liang in ancient China, revered Master Tanwan, and daily bowed toward his teacher, a bodhisattva in his eyes. When Master Bodhidharma gave Tanwan a Pure Land text, he burned his Taoist books and placed his trust in the land of peace. He wrote a commentary on Vasubandhu's discourse, reveal cause and effect of birth, both come from the vow. We depart and we return because of other power. Only through the mind of faith is Buddhahood assured. When the mind of faith awakes in ordinary beings, we are made aware that birth and death is nothing but nirvana. And when unfailingly we reach the limitless and radiant land, we will save the myriad of beings everywhere. Tao Cho discern on the noble path, attainment is hard to confirm, and clarified the Pure Land as a sole way to break through. Criticize self-power, practice of the myriad good works, and urge us only to recite the perfectly virtuous name. He kindly taught us face aspects, pure mind, single and constant, guides us as a Dharma declines toward outward form and extinction, meeting the all-embracing vow, though doing evil all our lives. We reach the world of nurturing peace, realize the fruit of enlightenment. Shantao alone shone light upon the Buddha's true intent, empathizing with those who practice good and with the rebellious and evil. He made it clear that the radiant name is the cause and condition for birth, clearing the way for all to enter the great sea of wisdom, the primal vow. We then receive the diamond mind, one and indestructible, through one moment of joyful thought in oneness with Amida. With Vaidehi we acquire faith and joy and wisdom, Awaken to the way things are, eternal and at peace. Genshin studied fully every teaching of the Buddha, chose refuge in the peaceful realm, imploring all to follow, divided deep and single faith from shallow sundry practice, distinguished birth in the true pure land from provisional attainments. He taught that even evil ones should simply say the Buddha's name. I too, he said, am fully in Tathagata's embrace. Though my defiled and anxious mind prevents me from perceiving it, the light of great compassion shines upon me ceaselessly. Our own Master Honen understood the Buddha's teachings with compassion for all ordinary beings, good or bad. He caused a true essential way to flourish in these islands, proclaimed the selected primal vow throughout the civil world, returning to samsara's house, the wheel of birth and death. Results when doubt and lack of trust become the mind's foundation. But when the mind of faith awakes, we are clearly made to enter the home of pure tranquility, transcending all conditions. The Mahasattva and masters, through teaching the sutras, have saved countless beings so defiled and corrupt. Now in our own time, both lay people and monks, let us trust with one heart what our noble masters have taught. The virtue of Amida's vow is shared equally by all, together attaining awakened mind. We are born in the land of peace. Namandavs, 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 namandavs. So did you find it hard to take your breath while you were chanting? Did you get out of breath? Well, there is a strategy, or we were taught when I was studying in Japan, it's called stealing your breath. And during the middle of a line, you can actually take a very quick little breath as you're chanting. It takes a little bit of effort, but one of the good aspects of chanting is that it's actually great exercise for your lungs. So if you chanted that along, yeah, you've done your exercise for your lungs this morning. Okay, so that's one of the benefits of chanting is, and they've actually done studies with some of the Chinese monks to show the lung capacity, and it is quite large compared to the average person. So there's a benefit of chanting along with the chant. So this morning, being Mother's Day, I wanted to start off by talking about fathers. Okay, you might find that kind of ironic, but I'm actually going to bring up here. This is, can you all see that on your screen? Yes, okay. This is the character, originally Chinese, but we use it in Japanese. We call this chichi or otosan, and this is the character for father, okay? And the character for father actually comes from a hand wielding a stone axe. Okay, it kind of, I don't know, can you all make that out? It kind of seems a little difficult to me to see, but I think, the hand holding the stone axe, right? And it's showing that the men or the fathers are the hunters in the family, right? The more primitive, I think, aspect of existence. Whereas this is the character for mother, okay? And the character for mother actually comes from a kneeling woman with breasts, okay? And down at the bottom here, you can see this little figure of a kneeling individual with breasts, okay? So, and that's just put sideways and you get that, okay? Now, why breasts? Well, for mothers, okay, the breasts represent nurturing, right? It is the aspect of life, nurturing, that is very important. And so when we think of the masculine side, the father, right, is the man holding a stone axe, whereas the mother is one that nurtures, okay? Or so if you look at it as the masculine and feminine, everything has both a masculine and feminine aspect to it. So there is the masculine side, which is the more brute force, or also this image, actually, another explanation comes that it's the disciplinarian. So there is another explanation that it's a hand wielding a whip as well. So that's a disciplinarian. So the father is the more disciplinarian side, and the mother is the nurturing side. Good cop, bad cop, right? The mother's the one that's always nurturing the child. And when we relate this to Buddhism, and in particular with our Pure Land Buddhism, so what you see here is what we call an Amida Triad. And this is actually quite typical of what you would see in many temples in Japan, where you have in the center is the image of Amida Buddha. Now this image of Amida Buddha is sitting down, so it's a Buddha in contemplation, okay? And then beside it, or in front of it, are two attendants, the bodhisattvas. And the one on facing our right, but to its left, this is what we call kannon, or guanyin in Chinese, kannon in Japanese, or avalokiteshvara in Sanskrit. Okay? And this is the bodhisattva of compassion. Right? And then on the facing of the left, on the Buddha's right, is actually what we call the bodhisattva of wisdom, seishi. Okay, Mahasammaprata is the Sanskrit name. But these are the two aspects of Amida Buddha: wisdom and compassion. Right. So when we see, I've explained before too, the hands of the Amida Buddha, the right hand being raised up is perfect wisdom, and then the left hand reaching out is perfect compassion, right? The Buddha has fingers are in the circle. The circle is a form of perfection, no beginning nor no end, right? So normally when we see this, we usually look at this kannon bodhisattva as a compassion element. But in fact, and over the many centuries, from India through China, through Korea and Japan, kannon has taken on many different iterations or different forms, okay? And it's become more and more feminized over the years. But the story behind this kannon, and here's a statue from one of the temples in Japan. This is called the 1,000-handed kannon. Okay, and I've given the story before about how the 11-headed. So there's 11 heads. So on the head of this, the crown of this Kannon Bodhisattva, you'll see that there are smaller heads of the Buddha looking out in different directions. Okay, so the story that I had mentioned before, and it actually comes from China, is that this Kannon Bodhisattva in its practice was out of compassion. It wanted to rid all existence of suffering, and it practiced very hard to do so. And just when it had thought it had completed ridding the existence from suffering, and it took just a very short break, a breath of relief, and it turned around again, and suddenly all that suffering was back. And it was said at that time, according to the Chinese legend, that this Kannon Bodhisattva then became shards of glass. Basically, it was in such shock that it splintered into thousands of shards of glass. At which point it's said that the Buddha Amida comes down to pick up those shards, and in fact turns each shard into an arm. So these are all tools for the Kannon Bodhisattva to use to rid the beings of suffering. Okay, so that in each of the 1,000 arms, it's carrying something, wielding something to help rid the beings of suffering. So this, and of course, at the same time, when the Kannon Bodhisattva was returned back to its form, it had the 11 heads added to it to show that it will not rest. It will look out in all directions until all beings are safe from suffering. So, as I mentioned, that over the centuries, though, this Kannon Bodhisattva has become more feminized. Now, this one here is interesting because if you look carefully, you can actually see that it has a mustache. It has a little mustache, a very thin mustache here. Okay, and so what it was that because Kannon is neither male or female, the carver who carved this wanted to ensure that people didn't get the wrong idea that it was a female, because it's neither male nor female. But what's happened over the centuries in Japan, and one of the major reasons why it became so feminized was actually had to do with feudalism. So in Japan, during what we call the Middle Ages of Japan, or the age of the warlords, particularly the period of around 1300 to 1800, so about 500-year period, there is a warlord or a family by the name of Tokugawa. Tokugawa Ieyasu was the first of that family to become the shogun of Japan, the warlord head of Japan. Remember last week I showed you the history of the temples throughout Canada and how our government actually affected how our propagation happened throughout Canada because of events that the government did during our post-World War II. Well, that's not really confined just to Canada. This has happened throughout history. It's still happening throughout history. And in Japan, this was also something that happened. In fact, what happened was when the Tokugawa dynasty, if you will, the shogun came into power, Japan became very isolated. And the Tokugawa regime, they wanted to make sure they had control. And it was a very feudalistic way of looking at things where within a family household, you are a unit within the family. And then the family is a unit within the community. And the community is in the unit of the fiefdom. And then, so there are warlords ahead of each of these fiefdoms. And then they sort of report up the ladder to the shogun, okay? So that's how the feudalism used to work. So one of the things that, in order to have control and in order to make sure this patronage, or to make sure that, you know, that the warlords kept their power, one of the things that they did was they started having registries. And what they ended up doing was they started making sure that everybody was either Buddhist or Shintoist, which were the two sort of, by that time, Buddhism had been in Japan long enough that it was one of the two accepted religions, okay? So as part of that, what they did was they made sure everybody was registered to a temple. So the registry occurred at the temple. So in Japan, this is actually how we get we call it Danka Seido. Danka is a membership, okay? So most of the families in Japan belong to a particular temple. And so when you speak to individuals, here in North America, if I ask you, what is your religion? You would say, I am a Buddhist, or I'm a Christian, or whatever it might be, right? I am. But in Japan, the common way of answering that is, my house belongs to. So because it was passed on from generation to generation, they were part of this registry, part of this being registered to a specific temple. And again, part of that was to have control by the shogunate. But another aspect of that is that they outlawed Christianity in Japan. Okay, so Christianity entered into Japan around 1400 by the Jesuits from Portugal. And if you want to know where, it's Nagasaki, which is in the southern island of Kyushu. There was a port there. And the Portuguese Jesuits came in and entered Japan. So Buddhism had been in Japan or Christianity, I'm sorry, had been in there for a fairly long time, but it was outlawed during the Tokugawa period. So one of the things they did is to ensure that you weren't Christian is that you belong to a temple. One, you're registered to a temple. And then secondly, when you pass away, if you didn't have a Buddhist name, you get a Buddhist name. And that was proof that you're Buddhist, right? So along with that, and why I'm telling you all this story is that some of the Christians sort of went underground to practice. And there's more specifically, so there's an image here, okay? And this is actually called Maria Kannon Japanese, okay? And what this comes from is when the Jesuits came in, they actually brought images of Maria with the baby Jesus, holding baby Jesus. And so the Christians, some of the Christians in Nagasaki area, what they ended up doing was carving, and they called this the Kannon Bodhisattva of compassion, right? And so they claimed that they were Buddhists by having this statue as a Bodhisattva of compassion. But in fact, inside many of these statues, they would have like a cross inside the statue. And so it became known as what they call Maria Kannon. And if you could Google up, there's many statues. So from that image, Kannon became even more feminized. And you can see, so in English now, when you talk about Kannon, you often find it as a goddess of compassion. So it's taking completely feminine feature. And this one, incidentally, is in Fukushima, where they had the nuclear power plant disaster. That's this statue. It's very, very large. You can see there's a little temple bell housing down here in the size of a tree. So this thing is huge, and you'll find these throughout Japan. So again, this is called the Maria Kannon. So basically, though, the whole idea of this kannon, or the nurturing aspect, but along with that, we can't forget that it also involves strength. And we know that mothers are much stronger than fathers, in that they are the ones that hold the families together. You've probably heard stories of never get between a mother bear and its cubs, right? Because the mothers will do anything for their child. But at the same time, that also means that the mothers are more prone to have deeper passions. So this is why in Buddhism, actually, it is considered that the females have more defilements. And I'm not being sexist here. It's just that mothers have deeper passions towards the children than fathers do. Um, and a good way of saying that is the mothers that nurture the child. Bad way of saying that is the mothers can, that passion can be overwhelming as well. So when we listen to the teachings of the Buddha, we are reminded of both, we have to have a balance of both compassion, but also wisdom. And we have to make sure that everything is in balance. So as we celebrate Mother's Day and we celebrate the feminine aspect of life, I'd like to thank all the mothers for all your nurturing and all your strength. We know that without you, we would not be here today. So thank you all for that. But at the same time, a reminder of, as the balance that we talk about in Buddhism, of wisdom and compassion. So it's not just the emotional, but it's also the wisdom that's very important. And so in our Jodo Shinshu temples, we are unique in that we don't have the Amida Triad. We only have Amida Buddha. And this is because Shinran Shonin said that within Amida itself, both elements exist. So he didn't find it necessary to have the attendants in front. So in Jodo Shinshu temples, you'll find only the statue of Amida Buddha. But it is generally recognized that there are two attendants, wisdom and compassion, or two aspects of Amida Buddha is wisdom and compassion. So I wanted to introduce you to that today for my Dharma talk, and I'd like to close the Dharma talk with a recitation of the Nembutsu. Please join me in Gassho. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. This will conclude this morning's service. Thank you all for joining.